Hi, this is Steve with OS Nexus, and in this video we're going to be talking about ransomware and how to protect your organization against it. So first off, what is ransomware? It's basically a security breach where some malicious software is being used by attackers to go through all of your data and encrypt it so that they're the only ones that have the key to those systems and to your data, and then they extort your organization to go pay to get that key from them. Those attacks could happen many months before your IT organization is aware of it. Getting a backup onto a tape that is offsite where you have verified that the data is accessible, that it's not an encrypted file, that your backup is, or if it is encrypted, that it's with your keys and that you're able to get your data back, is super important, because if they go in and attack your systems and you're doing regular backups, you have a last line of defense. You can go back to those tapes. Or if you're backing up to the cloud, to object storage, you've got immutable storage there, as long as that whole system is protected in such a way that it's got a data governance policy on it so that the data is a write once and they can't delete it there or modify it, then that's another good strategy for having backups that's completely cloud-based. So backups, super critical. That's your last line of defense. The next one is remote replication. You want to have all of your critical systems replicated to another site. So if you've got a bunch of virtual machines running that are mission critical virtual machines, you should have a full copy of those being replicated to some other site. Part of the replication is that you also want that replication to give you recovery points. And the reason why is that let's say that the attackers came in and they started encrypting data and you weren't aware of it. They could be encrypting data for many months potentially of certain areas of critical data that maybe you're not accessing, people don't very often, and people don't notice it, but they go in and encrypt that. They're the only ones with the key, and if your backups are backing up that data that they have encrypted, you need to have a good backup that goes before that time before the time that the breach took place. So it's not just important to have a current replica. That copy at that other location needs to have a history that you can roll back in time to. And snapshots are basically the way that's most commonly done. Snapshots are kind of a component of remote replication. Sometimes it's called like an incremental backup if it's a kind of combination backup remote replication strategy that you're taking. But inside of block and file storage systems, NAS systems and block storage and even object storage systems, there's ways of taking snapshots so that you can go and have point-in-time recovery points. So you could have a snapshot being taken every week, every month, maybe multiple times per day. But you have snapshots that are being retained so that you can go back in time to some collection of snapshots that are a month old, a quarter old, maybe as much as a year old or more. And that means that if they have gotten into your system and started encrypting your files, you can go back to a snapshot and start to quickly recover that data back before the attack took place. So snapshots, specifically immutable snapshots, are super important for fast recovery because you don't have to go out to the cloud to recover your files. You don't have to go to a tape to go recover your files. It's very instant with the recovery when you're bringing data back from a snapshot. And the last bit is that you just need to be prepared, have a business continuity plan, do internal audits. This other bit, monitor space usage. Why is that so important? That's super important because if they're going in and encrypting your data and you have snapshots in place, the snapshots are going to have the previous copy of the data. The encrypted copy is going to double the amount of used capacity for every single encrypted file that is written to your system. So if you see a big explosion in used capacity that is unaccounted for, that might be a sign that you've got a breach. Just monitor how much space is being used by everyone in the organization and look for those anomalies. And then you've got the fallback to the backup. So you want to have these three layers of recovery, backed up, snapshotted, and replicated to the other site. So before I get into a demo, I want to just go over real quick, what is QuantaStor? I'm going to be showing you how to set up a QuantaStor storage system with some snapshotting and some remote replication setup so that you can employ some of those best practices that I went over on the previous slide. So what is QuantaStor? QuantaStor is our software-defined storage platform. It's all Linux-based. It runs on a standard server, installs bare metal on pretty much any major server. We do a lot of certification with all the major brands. Our grid technology just makes it so that you can combine those QuantaStor systems together and secure them and manage them as one. So that makes it a lot easier to employ a security policy that goes across everything in your organization, and makes it much easier to go and implement remote replication strategies and snapshot strategies holistically across your organization. So we do a lot of work on security. We do a lot of work on making it flexible by integrating with a lot of different vendors and models of servers. So you've got a broad hardware compatibility list to choose from. That's a quick little bit on QuantaStor. We're going to go and configure it. These ones are completely unconfigured systems. So let's go create some pools. We're going to create a pool on two different QuantaStor systems. And so we'll call this first one Pool 1. You can also enable encryption, software or hardware encryption. Hardware encryption uses the self-encrypting drive feature that's common on most SSDs. I'm just going to set this up with software encryption just to show you that. That's it. So we're going to create a quick little Pool 1 here. And next we're going to go create some network shares. These are the file folders where your users can go put data in, and they can access it via SMB or NFS. You can have these QuantaStor systems join your Active Directory domain so that you're only allowing your authorized Active Directory users to access these folders. I'm just going to call this first one Finance, and I will make another share here, and we'll call this one Backups, and make another folder here, and we'll just call it ISOs or something like that. So we've got a few folders now that we want to protect. These are going to have some mission critical data from the finance department. So how do we go and make it so that we can roll back and throw out all their encrypted files and not lose our data and not have to pay the ransomware? The key bit is that we're going to go over first is snapshots. So you want to set up a schedule to make these snapshots automatic. That way, automatically protecting your data and giving you rollback points that you can go to go recover files from. The first bit here is the schedule interval. You can set up the snapshot schedules to just run every so often, like every 30 minutes, or you can have it run at certain times of day or night. Here for something real simple, we'll have it take a snapshot every 30 minutes. What the default here is to go and retain 2 hourly, 2 daily, 2 weekly, 2 monthly, 2 quarterly. This means it's going to go and have a snapshot that goes back 2 quarters and 2 months and so on. And so if you had an attack, you could go and look at over time, it would build up to having 10 snapshots, 2 of each of these. And you could go and say, oh, okay, well, we'll check first the hourly, then the daily, and to go back in time until you find your files where they're not encrypted by the hacker, and then you'd recover from those good files. And then quarterly, you might go back 4 quarters, which would be a full year. So with these settings over time, the snapshots that are being generated automatically, some of those are going to be retained and marked as long-term retention snapshots. So last but not least, we need to pick what we want to snapshot, and I'm just going to snapshot all the shares that we created, and that's it. So every 30 minutes, it's going to take a new snapshot. After the snapshot is created, it may or may not get marked for long-term retention. So there's a rotation of snapshots that's happening here. And we've got right now this set to 3, which means that with it taking a snapshot every half hour, it means that we could go back in time an hour and a half, plus any of these snapshots that are being retained. So okay, so that's all there is to creating a snapshot schedule. Now that we've created it, it's going to go and start making those snapshots for us automatically. So if we go here back to our network shares, you're going to see that we have some snapshots. And the snapshots show up here with this @GMT on them. And so those from here on out, it's just going to make those snapshots for us. It's going to go through a rotation to throw out the oldest ones automatically. And that's a real easy way to go and protect your organization. So now we're going to talk about remote replication. So to set up remote replication, we're going to need to set up a link between the two systems where our pools are located. And we created a pool on 75 and 76. Just kind of going back here, we can look at the pools that we created, and we've got, we haven't created a second pool yet. Let's create that. And we're going to put that on the second box, and we're going to recreate that or create that RAID 10 that's encrypted. There we go. So now we have our two pools, and we can go here now and set up what we call a remote replication link. And this allows data to be replicated from one QuantaStore system to another. And it also indicates a maximum bandwidth to be used for that link. And that's really important because if you've got a wide array network between your one site to another, you don't want it to be all fully consumed by replication of data. And we can turn on encryption and compression for that link. And that's all there is to going and setting up the link. And so now once the link is established, we can then set up, just like we set up a snapshot schedule, we can set up a remote replication schedule. It works the same way. We can just say, hey, run every 30 minutes. We're going to protect these network shares and the long-term retention rules. The checkpoint is the destination side, and maybe we want to have a few more of these, like 4 quarterlies and 4 monthlies, or maybe 6 monthlies. And this gives us various checkpoints that we can go back in time to grab data from. These snapshots are immutable. So the snapshots that are being retained on the source side will be 6, and the destination side is going to be roughly 22 here. That's all there is to setting up the long-term retention rules. You can see it works a lot like the snapshot policies. We're ready to go and create this. The max delta points, this is the same as this is the number of snapshots that are short-term being rotated through. And then the long-term retention rule portion can select from those snapshots and freeze them and use them for long-term retention. So here I might just increase this up to like 6, and that's it. Everything else is correct. We're going to replicate those shares from 75 to 76, and the destination pool is that pool 2 that we created. And so I just need to click OK, and it's going to go and create the replication schedule for us and start replicating. And you can see it's already started replicating those shares. And you can see the status of the replication right here. If you click on replication report, you can see that schedule started, it's initializing, and then we'll get a bit of a play-by-play on what it's doing during the replication. So it says that the first one's already synchronized, and it's going to run through the other ones. And now you'll see over here on the network shares that there's the snapshots that were created by our snapshot schedule, as well as snapshots that were created by our replication schedule. The replication schedule is basically an enhanced version of a snapshot schedule, so you don't need to have both. And so what I would recommend in this case, where you do have a DR site, this snapshot schedule is fully redundant because we already have a replication schedule making snapshots for us. So we can just delete this snapshot schedule. We don't need to have this. And so I'm just going to remove that. The last bit I wanted to cover is how you can set up some schedules here for reporting. If you go in and configure the alert manager in QuantaStore, which is a really important thing to do so you get notified when maintenance is required, you can go in here and have QuantaStore set up so that the grid will send you emails if there's something that needs attention, like a bad power supply or a bad hard drive. After you've set up the SMTP server settings here, you'll want to set up a report schedule. And this lets you go in and say, hey, give me a pool usage report so that I can keep track of how much capacity is being used. And then you can look at those reports on a weekly basis and see if anything untoward is happening. So if somebody was to go in and start encrypting your data, you're going to see a big rise in used capacity. And if that's unaccounted for, like if it's like you didn't have a project that was producing a lot of data and that looked anomalous, then you could go in and start doing some more investigation on it. So these pool usage reports, a great way to kind of keep track of what's happening with all the different pools. Here I've got just the one pool with data on it, but you could set up different reports to go and give you reports on different pools on different systems. So, and we can tell it to send us a report like Saturday evening every week, or you can have this be more often or less often. By default, we have it set to 7 days. And that's it. You just click OK, and it's going to go and now send an email report to your email address. This one here, I didn't put in the email address, but you would put your email address in this location. And that's kind of the main things I wanted to go over. So we went over snapshots, we went over how to set up remote replication, and we went over how to generate reports to go and get information about how much capacity is being used and the overall health of all the systems in the storage grid. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.